As we all know, the Battle of Thermopylae is one of the most important battles in human history. The story of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans has become a thing of legend, standing strong against the might of the Persian Empire. But what if I told you that this was just the beginning? What if there's more to this tale than meets the eye? Join me as we uncover the untold legacy of the 10,000 Spartans, a vengeful journey that goes beyond the heroic stand at Thermopylae. For 3 centuries, the Spartans had endured the tyranny of the Persian Empire. Under the rule of Xerxes, their homeland had been ravaged and their people oppressed. But now it was time for payback. When word reached Sparta that King Leonidas and his 300 elite warriors had held off the massive Persian army at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, a powerful force was assembling in secret. Sparta was preparing for war. This wasn't just going to be any ordinary battle. This was personal. This was revenge. While the Persians celebrated their victory at Thermopylae, they had no idea what was coming next. For Sparta, honor was everything, and when the Persians had violated their land and murdered their citizens, it had to be avenged. There would be no rest for the wicked. The Spartans were ready to strike back with a force that would make Xerxes regret ever setting foot in Greece. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting its golden rays across the Aegean Sea, a shadow fell over the Persian camp. The Spartans were here, led by King Cleombrotus, a warrior as fierce and determined as Leonidas himself. They were ready to take on the Persian army and win the ultimate prize, revenge. Now let's jump into the heart of the action. Imagine being there on that fateful day as the Spartans descended upon the unsuspecting Persians like a bolt from the blue. The element of surprise was their secret weapon, allowing them to strike when their enemies were at their most vulnerable. But how did they pull it off? What strategies and tactics did they employ to catch the Persians off guard? Get ready to be amazed by the sheer brilliance and cunning of the Spartan warriors as they used every trick in the book to gain the upper hand. From stealthy maneuvers to psychological warfare, these guys were the masters of deception. They knew how to read their opponents and exploit their weaknesses, and they weren't afraid to get creative either. No 2 attacks were the same. Each one was carefully planned out with precision timing and flawless execution. The Spartans were unstoppable. But why do you think the Spartans chose this approach? What was their motivation for wanting to humiliate the Persians even more after their victory at Thermopylae? Was it just about revenge, or was there something more at stake? Join us as we delve deep into the psychology of these legendary warriors and explore the deeper meaning behind their actions. You won't believe what you discover. The Spartans weren't just fighting for their own glory, they were fighting for something much bigger than themselves. They were fighting for the freedom of Greece. The Persians had threatened the very existence of their way of life, and the Spartans were determined to protect it at all costs. But it wasn't easy. The Persians were a formidable opponent with a vast and powerful empire behind them. They had resources and manpower that the Spartans could only dream of. Yet the Spartans refused to back down. They stood their ground and fought with unwavering courage and determination. It was a David and Goliath story, but with a Spartan twist. They didn't have the numbers or the resources, but they had something else. They had each other. The Spartans were a team, a brotherhood of warriors who trusted and relied on one another. They were willing to sacrifice everything for their comrades, and that bond was unbreakable. They fought not only for themselves, but for their families, their friends, and their fellow Greeks. They were defending the values and traditions that made them who they were. And they wouldn't rest until the Persians were defeated. The Spartans were on the march again, but this time it was personal. It was time for revenge. As King Cleombrotus led his army across the Aegean Sea towards the Persian Empire, the stakes couldn't be higher. The Spartans were out for blood, and the Persians were in for a world of pain. But before we dive into the heart of this epic showdown, let's take a closer look at the man leading the charge. King Cleombrotus, known as the Lion of Sparta, was a warrior like no other. With a burning desire for revenge, he assembled an elite force of 10,000 Spartans, each one as fierce and determined as the last. Their mission was simple: strike fear into the hearts of the Persians and make them pay for what they had done at Thermopylae. When the Spartans arrived on Persian soil, it was like a nightmare from hell had come to life. The Persians were terrified. The Spartan army was a force to be reckoned with, and they weren't afraid to use their strength to punish the Persians. But it wasn't just brute force that made the Spartans so effective. They were also brilliant tacticians, able to outmaneuver and outthink their opponents on the battlefield. The Persians couldn't escape the Spartan wrath no matter where they went. In the mountains or on the open field, the Spartans were always ready for them. The Persians were trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The Spartans pursued them relentlessly, striking them hard and fast whenever they got the chance. They burned their villages, destroyed their crops, and left a trail of destruction in their wake. The Persians were demoralized and desperate, but the Spartans showed no mercy. The revenge of the Spartans was swift and brutal, and the Persians had no one to blame but themselves. They had underestimated the Spartans, thinking they were just a small, insignificant city-state. But they had been wrong. The Spartans were a force to be reckoned with, and they had paid the ultimate price for their arrogance. What happens next will leave you speechless. The Spartans continued their campaign of vengeance, attacking the Persians in their home territory and causing massive devastation. But then, something unexpected happened. The Spartans came across a group of civilians, women and children who had been caught up in the conflict. According to Spartan customs, civilians were usually exempt from military conflict. So what did the Spartans do next? This act of mercy shocked the Persians, who had grown accustomed to the Spartans' ruthlessness. The Persians had expected the Spartans to show no mercy, but instead they had shown restraint. It humanized the Spartans in the eyes of the Persians and made them realize that they were facing more than just a ruthless army. They were facing a disciplined, honorable, and even merciful foe. As the dust settled on the battlefield, the true cost of the Persian invasion became clear. Their dreams of conquest had turned into a nightmare of defeat and humiliation. The once mighty Persian army was now a shadow of its former self, scattered and demoralized. The Spartans had struck a devastating blow to the heart of the Persian Empire, and it would never be the same again. With their vengeance complete, the Spartans returned home to the cheers of their fellow Greeks. They had avenged the death of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, and they had done it in a way that would live on in legend. The Spartans had shown the world what it meant to be a true warrior, a warrior who fought not just for glory, but for honor, courage, and freedom. But the story doesn't end there. The Spartan victory at Thermopylae had far-reaching consequences that shaped the course of history. It had inspired other Greek city-states to unite and resist the Persian threat. And together they had forged a new alliance, one that would ensure the freedom of Greece forever. The Spartans had been instrumental in creating this alliance, and their bravery and determination had set an example for all the Greeks to follow. In the aftermath of the Persian War, Sparta emerged as the dominant power in Greece. Their military prowess had been unmatched, and their influence spread far and wide. Other city-states looked to Sparta as a model of strength and discipline, and Spartan culture and customs were emulated throughout Greece. The Spartans had proven that a small city-state could triumph over a mighty empire, and they had done it without compromising their values or their way of life. The Battle of Thermopylae had been a defining moment for the Spartans, and its legacy would live on for centuries to come. The Spartans had fought with unmatched valor, and their sacrifice had inspired generations of warriors. They had shown that courage and determination could overcome even the most daunting odds. And let's not forget about the Spartans' military innovations. Their unique style of warfare, which emphasized discipline, endurance, and teamwork, was a game-changer. It allowed them to take on larger, more powerful armies and come out on top. The Spartans were also known for their incredible physical prowess. Their mastery of weaponry and armor was unmatched, and they were feared by their enemies for their ability to fight like true warriors. The Spartans were also renowned for their strategic brilliance. They were able to anticipate their opponents' moves, outmaneuver them on the battlefield, and exploit their weaknesses. Their ability to adapt to different situations and come up with innovative solutions made them a formidable force on the battlefield. The Spartans were a society that valued honor, courage, and freedom above all else. They were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for their beliefs, and they inspired others to do the same. Their sense of duty and commitment to their fellow Spartans was unparalleled, and it was this sense of community that made them such a powerful force. Overall, the Spartans were a truly remarkable civilization. Their military achievements, physical prowess, strategic brilliance, and unwavering sense of honor and freedom made them a force to be reckoned with. They left behind a legacy that has inspired countless people throughout history, and their story continues to captivate us today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Spartans and their incredible achievements. If you want to learn more about ancient civilizations, be sure to stay tuned for more updates. Until then, remember the Spartans and their legacy of courage, honor, and freedom. Stay strong, stay true, and never give up in the face of adversity.